Subscribe to the channel and comment what city or country you're watching from. A black maid is ordered to eat from the floor, and the billionaire discovers that his fiancée is stealing from people who have nothing. Pick it up with your mouth. Elodie Crane's command silenced the staff corridor behind the Ashford Conservatory. 29-year-old black maid Talia Mercer knelt beside a shattered plate. Rice, vegetables, and gravy were scattered across the marble near her knees. Elodie stood over her in a silver evening gown with Talia's badge. "You said food should not be wasted," Elodie continued. "So eat it. I said the shelter meals should not be thrown away. You were caught carrying food through the service gate. Because the delivery truck never came. Beyond the double doors, guests were gathering for a gala promising 1 million meals." Elodie pushed another plate from a cart with her heel. It shattered beside Talia. "Now there is more for you." Talia lifted her chin. "You can fire me. You cannot make me eat from the floor." Elodie crouched. "Your mother's rehabilitation insurance ends the moment your employment does." Talia went still. Her mother's stroke therapy depended on the household plan Elodie had reviewed that morning. You would cancel her treatment over leftovers? Over disobedience? A tear escaped before Talia could stop it. Elodie smiled. "Lower your head." The service door opened. 43-year-old billionaire Dorian Ashford entered. He was expected to remain with donors. Instead, he stopped. He saw the broken dishes, Talia on her knees, and Elodie holding her badge like a threat. "What is happening?" Elodie turned quickly. "Dorian, Talia was stealing food meant for the charity." Talia tried to stand. Pain shot through her knee where a porcelain shard had cut her uniform. Dorian offered his hand. "Take it." He helped her up, then saw the blood. "You're hurt. It's small. It is not nothing." Elodie stepped closer. "She created this scene because I caught her taking meals." Dorian looked at the floor. "And your response was to make her eat from it." "I was teaching her that waste has consequences." "You cancelled the shelter delivery." Elodie's expression changed. Dorian noticed. "What delivery?" "The 600 meals prepared in the East Kitchen," Talia said. "They were supposed to leave at 4. "The shelter changed its request," Elodie replied. "No. I called them." Talia removed her phone. "The shelter director said they have not received one meal from the Ashford Foundation in 3 weeks." Dorian looked at Elodie. "That is impossible. I signed every invoice." "You signed payment approvals," Talia said. "Not delivery confirmations." Elodie laughed. "She is a maid repeating kitchen gossip. I managed inventory for a hospital cafeteria before my mother became ill," Talia replied. "I know what 600 meals look like. I also know what an empty loading dock looks like." Dorian glanced at the food. "This plate. The only one left from the shipment." Elodie stepped between them. She planned to sell the meals herself. Talia opened a photograph on her phone. It showed the loading bay at 4:12 p.m. Empty. The next image showed the digital dispatch board. Ashford Relief Delivery, 600 meals, collected 4 p.m. No truck had appeared. Dorian's face hardened. "Who marked them collected?" Talia enlarged the image. "Authorization, E. Crane." Elodie went pale. "The system uses my initials automatically. Then where are the meals?" Dorian asked. 3 days earlier, Talia had first noticed the pattern. Every afternoon, the East Kitchen prepared hundreds of boxed meals beneath the foundation logo. Staff counted them, sealed the carts, and sent them toward the service gate. But the carts never reached the shelters. They were redirected into a refrigerated room used by Elodie's private event company. The following morning, the same meals appeared at corporate luncheons billed at luxury catering prices. Food paid for by Dorian's charity was being sold back to his own businesses. Talia photographed the labels. Elodie caught her inside the storage room and confiscated her phone, unaware the images had already uploaded to a secure account. That evening, Elodie summoned her before the gala. "You will say you miscounted the meals." "I won't." "Then I will say you stole them." "You would need evidence." Elodie smiled. I have your staff code on the loading room lock. Someone had used Talia's access number at 4:03 p.m. Then Elodie carried a plate into the corridor, dropped it at Talia's feet, and called the staff to watch. Now Dorian picked up Talia's badge and returned it to her. She is not fired. Elodie stared at him. You are choosing her over me. I am choosing to investigate before humiliating an employee. Talia looked toward the ballroom. There is something else. Dorian turned. The gala screen is scheduled to show a live feed from the shelter at 8. Yes. There will be no one there receiving food. Elodie snapped, enough. Talia held Dorian's gaze. The shelter named on your program closed 11 months ago. The music in the ballroom swelled as the charity countdown began. 10 minutes remained before 300 donors watched a live broadcast from a shelter that no longer existed. And someone had already collected $12 million in its name. Dorian looked toward the ballroom clock. 9 minutes remained. Stop the presentation, he told his event director. She touched her headset and shook her head. The media system is locked from the control booth. Tonight's program was replaced with an encrypted file. Elodie folded her arms. This is ridiculous. The broadcast was tested this afternoon. By whom? Dorian asked. My production team. Talia looked at the shattered food. Her private event company. Dorian turned to security chief Marcus Reed. Seal the ballroom exits quietly. No one connected to Crane Events leaves. Elodie laughed. You are locking down your gala because a maid misunderstood a delivery. I am preventing evidence from disappearing. Dorian placed his jacket around Talia's shoulders, covering her bleeding knee. Elodie's expression hardened. You are making her look like a victim. She is bleeding because you broke plates around her. I never touched her. You used her mother's treatment to force her onto the floor. Staff had gathered near the kitchen entrance. None looked surprised. Dorian noticed. How often has she threatened employees with their benefits? Silence followed. Talia looked at Mrs. Chen, the pastry supervisor. Tell him. Mrs. Chen raised her hand. Miss Crane withheld my husband's medication reimbursement after I questioned missing invoices. A cook stepped forward. She removed my overtime when I refused to sign blank delivery forms. Then a dishwasher spoke. She said the foundation could replace us before breakfast. Elodie's face turned cold. You are all dismissed. Dorian stopped her. No one is dismissed. The screens displayed. 5 minutes until the Ashford Relief live connection. Talia moved toward the service elevator. The control booth is above the west balcony. I know a maintenance route. Dorian and Marcus followed. Elodie stepped into their path. You cannot interrupt a $12 million campaign. That money was raised for a shelter that closed 11 months ago, Talia said. What are they about to see? Elodie did not answer. As the doors closed, she called someone. Talia saw the name on her screen. Graham Pike. Who is he? Dorian asked. Chief Financial Officer of Crane Events. His signature is on the refrigerated room sheets. The elevator opened behind the ballroom balcony. Applause rose below as the host approached the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now connect live with Harbour Haven Shelter. Marcus tried the control booth door. Locked. Dorian swiped his MasterCard. Access denied. Talia removed the keypad cover with a tool. You carry that while serving? Dorian asked. No one repairs anything until guests notice. She bridged 2 contacts. The door released. Inside, Graham sat before 6 monitors with a hard drive connected. He reached for the erase command. Marcus seized his wrist. Step away. Graham looked at Elodie's name flashing on his phone. The broadcast must play. Dorian removed the drive. What is on it? A live shelter feed. From a building that is closed. Graham's confidence broke. It is a reconstruction. A lie, Talia said. The ballroom screens turned black. Then the program restarted automatically. A video appeared below. Volunteers cheered as Ashford Foundation trucks arrived at a brightly lit shelter. Families stood beneath a banner thanking Dorian for 1 million meals. The guests applauded. Talia stared at the footage. That isn't Harbor Haven. How can you tell? Dorian asked. The windows. Harbor Haven had narrow arches. Those are modern square panels. Marcus froze the image. Talia pointed to a clock above the reception desk. It shows 2:15, but the shadows outside show evening. I saw that room in a hospital training video. Graham sank into the chair. They filmed it on a soundstage. Marcus opened the drive. There were 12 versions of the fake shelter video with different banners and totals. Dorian went pale. This has been happening for a year. Talia found a spreadsheet labeled Community Partners. Each shelter matched a routing number. Harbor Haven's donations had been sent to North Lantern Recovery. Who owns North Lantern? Dorian asked. Graham looked toward the door. Elodie. Talia opened the registration file. No. The owner is Lorraine Mercer. Her mother. Silence fell. That's impossible, Talia whispered. My mother cannot sign therapy forms without help. Graham gave a bitter laugh. That is why Elodie chose her. What did she do? North Lantern was registered using your mother's medical identity. Her records and signature scans were copied from the benefit system. You made a stroke survivor responsible for $12 million in stolen donations. Elodie said no investigator would prosecute a sick woman. Talia's voice shook. And when the fraud surfaced, you planned to blame me for stealing food and my mother for stealing money. Graham looked down. The applause ended. A donation total climbed across the screens. $12 million. Then it changed. $18,400,000. Dorian frowned. We raised $12 million. Marcus checked the banking feed. Another $6.4 million entered North Lantern. From where? The Ashford Conservatory Restoration Account. That account holds the building's insurance money. Talia understood. The gala created enough activity to hide a larger transfer. Graham grabbed a metal paper cutter and slashed the network cable. The monitors went dark. Marcus restrained him, but the money had cleared. Dorian's phone rang. Elodie's voice came through the speaker. You should have let the maid finish eating. Talia stepped closer. Where is my mother? At the rehabilitation center, signing a confession that says she created North Lantern with her daughter. The call ended. Talia ran for the door. Dorian caught her arm gently. We go together. Marcus opened the rehabilitation center's security feed. Every camera was disabled except one. Talia's mother sat in a wheelchair before a stack of documents. Elodie stood behind her, guiding a pen into her weakened hand. Beside them, a digital clock counted down from 15 minutes. Graham looked at Talia. When it reaches 0, the confession is submitted, the money moves overseas, and every original delivery record is deleted. Dorian picked up the hard drive. Then we have 15 minutes to save your mother and prove who stole the money. Talia, Dorian, and Marcus reached the Ashford Rehabilitation Center with 11 minutes remaining on the transfer clock. Rain hammered the windshield as Marcus drove through the locked gate. Every light in the 6-story building was dark except one on the 3rd floor. My mother's room is on the 2nd floor, Talia said. Then Elodie moved her, Dorian replied. Marcus stopped near the ambulance entrance. A heavy chain had been wrapped around the glass doors from inside. Forcing them will trigger the fire shutters, Talia warned. This center locks every patient wing during a security breach. She led them to the laundry dock and pulled a mechanical release beneath the ramp. The door opened. Inside, empty wheelchairs lined the corridor while an alarm beeped above them. Dorian checked his phone. 9 minutes. Marcus contacted police waiting 2 streets away. Hold until I confirm the patients are secure. They entered the service stairwell. On the 3rd floor, Talia heard her mother's voice. No. Weak, but unmistakable. She ran toward the therapy room. Lorraine Mercer sat in her wheelchair before a digital tablet. A leather strap crossed her waist. Elodie stood behind her, forcing a pen into her weakened right hand. The confession claimed Lorraine and Talia had created North Lantern Recovery and stolen more than $18 million. A timer beneath the signature line showed 7 minutes. "Take your hand off my mother," Talia said. Elodie turned. In one hand, she held Lorraine's wrist. In the other was a syringe. "You should have finished cleaning the floor." Dorian stepped beside Talia. "You are done threatening my employees and their families." Elodie smiled. "Your employees? You never knew their names until she embarrassed you. I know yours well enough to give it to the police. You still think this ends with an arrest?" She pressed the syringe against Lorraine's neck. "One injection, and her blood pressure collapses before anyone reaches this room." Talia stopped moving. "What is in it?" "Enough to make a stroke survivor appear to suffer another natural event." Dorian's face tightened. "Let her go, and I will give you access to the restoration account. You no longer control it." Graham completed the first transfer. "Not the overseas release," Talia said. "You still need Lorraine's live signature." Elodie's eyes shifted toward her. That was confirmation. Marcus moved slowly toward the wall panel. Elodie noticed. "Touch the power, and the center's oxygen system shuts down." Marcus froze. More than 30 patients required oxygen. Elodie had tied the fraud to their survival. The alarm beep came through a speaker beside the ventilation grill. "Mom," Talia said, keeping her eyes on Elodie, "did they move your emergency recorder?" Lorraine blinked twice. Their old signal for yes. "Where?" Lorraine's gaze moved toward the chapel corridor. Elodie tightened her grip. "Stop speaking in riddles." Talia looked at Dorian. "The center records therapy sessions. My mother requested a recorder after staff changed her medication times." Dorian understood. It may have captured Elodie forcing her to sign. Elodie laughed. "Recordings disappear. Not my mother's. She hides copies where administrators never look." For the first time, Elodie glanced toward the chapel. Marcus used the distraction. He threw a folded blanket across the syringe hand. Talia lunged for Lorraine's chair. Elodie jerked backward, and the needle struck Dorian's arm. He collapsed against the table. "Dorian." Talia caught him before he hit the floor. Marcus forced Elodie's wrist down and kicked the syringe away. She twisted free, struck the emergency lock, and ran through the chapel corridor. Steel shutters began descending across the patient wings. Marcus pursued her. Talia lowered Dorian onto the floor. His eyes remained open, but his breathing slowed. "What did she give you?" "I don't know." Lorraine pointed shakily toward a red medical cabinet. Talia found an emergency medication chart. The label was gone, but a drop remained inside the syringe. Dorian fought to stay conscious. "Save your mother." "I'm saving both of you." She photographed the syringe and sent the image to the on-call physician. Then she cut Lorraine's restraint with scissors. The timer showed 4 minutes. Lorraine touched Talia's arm. "Chapel," she whispered. "Floor." "The recorder is under the chapel floor?" Lorraine nodded. Talia pushed Lorraine while supporting Dorian. They crawled beneath the shutter before it struck the floor. Inside the chapel, rain rattled the stained glass windows. Lorraine pointed to the third tile before the altar. Talia pried it up with a metal hymn rack. Beneath it was a waterproof case of flash drives, invoices, photographs, and a handwritten ledger. Every false shelter was listed beside the company that bought the stolen meals. Each payment led to Elodie's accounts. Dorian, barely conscious, studied the final page. "This proves everything." Lorraine shook her head and pointed toward the chapel speaker. A green light blinked. They were still being watched. Elodie's voice filled the room. "The ledger proves nothing if the witnesses do not survive." The chapel doors locked. Smoke began pouring through the vents. On the tablet attached to Lorraine's wheelchair, the signature timer reached 2 minutes. A live feed showed Elodie and Graham Pike inside the oxygen room beside the valves supplying every patient floor. Graham held a lighter. "Bring the ledger and let Lorraine sign," Elodie said, "or this building burns before police reach the door." Talia looked at the smoke and the trapped patients beyond the shutters. Then Dorian forced himself upright. "She thinks the ledger is the only copy." Lorraine reached inside her wheelchair cushion and removed a small flash drive. She had hidden it before Elodie entered. Before Talia could take it, the elevator bell sounded outside the locked chapel. The doors opened. A man wearing a federal charity inspector badge stepped into the smoke. Talia recognized his signature from every fraudulent shelter contract. Inspector Malcolm Rusk, the official who had certified that Harbor Haven was still operating. He looked at Elodie on the monitor and spoke with quiet fury. "You were never supposed to let Dorian see the ledger." Malcolm Rusk stepped through the smoke as the chapel doors locked behind him. Talia held the waterproof ledger against her chest. Dorian struggled to remain upright beside the altar, one hand pressed over the injection mark on his arm. Lorraine sat in her wheelchair with the hidden flash drive beneath her blanket. "You certified every fake shelter," Talia said. Rusk looked toward the monitor showing Elodie and Graham inside the oxygen room. "Yes. Then you helped steal the donations." "I helped make the theft look legal." Dorian's voice was weak but steady. "Why come here now?" Rusk removed his federal badge and placed it on the altar. "Because Elodie stopped following the plan." "The plan was to frame my mother and me," Talia said. "The original plan was to create temporary charities, move the money, then return it through private grants before the annual audit. Elodie promised no family would permanently lose anything. Families went hungry while you waited for stolen money to return." Rusk lowered his eyes. "I know." On the monitor, Elodie struck the oxygen room console. "You have 90 seconds, she announced. "Bring me the ledger." Rusk continued. 6 months ago, the money stopped returning. Graham moved it into accounts I could not trace. When I threatened to report them, Elodie showed me proof that I approved the first false certifications. "So she controlled you," Talia said. "Yes." Smoke thickened near the ceiling. Dorian leaned against a pew. "Can you unlock the chapel?" Rusk removed a maintenance override card. "I can open one door. The moment I do, Elodie may close the patient oxygen valves." Marcus's voice came through Talia's phone. "I'm outside the oxygen room." Graham barricaded the corridor and connected the emergency valves to the fire alarm. Rusk pointed at the ledger. "Elodie wants the handwritten pages because they contain the only complete list of accounts. The digital records can be challenged. Those pages cannot." Lorraine lifted the flash drive. Talia understood. "The ledger can be bait." Dorian looked toward the smoke vents. "Then give her what she wants." Talia tore the final account pages from the ledger and hid them beneath Lorraine's wheelchair cushion. She filled the cover with blank chapel donation sheets. "You take it," Rusk said. "She expects me," Talia replied. Dorian caught her wrist. "You are not walking into a room filled with fuel. My mother cannot move quickly. You can barely stand. Marcus needs someone close to the valves." He had no better answer. Rusk opened the chapel door. Talia pushed Lorraine into the corridor while Rusk and Dorian helped nurses move patients through the lowering shutters. The smoke came from theatrical canisters hidden in the ventilation system. Elodie had created panic while preparing to destroy the evidence. Talia carried the false ledger toward the oxygen room. "Stop there," Elodie ordered through the glass. Graham stood beside the main oxygen manifold with a lighter. Fuel covered part of the floor, but the tanks remained behind a steel barrier. "Open the door," Talia said. "You cannot examine it through glass." Elodie opened the door 6 inches. "Slide it inside." Graham pulled the ledger through with a metal hook. Elodie opened it and found the blank pages. Her expression changed. "Where are the accounts?" "Safe." Elodie struck the oxygen control. Nothing happened. Marcus stepped from behind the tanks holding a disconnected cable. "You should never trust a system you made the maintenance staff repair." Graham threw the lighter. Talia kicked the ledger into its path. The flame caught the leather cover instead of the fuel. Fire sprinklers activated, drenching the room. Marcus forced the door open. Graham ran toward the rear exit, but Rusk blocked him. Graham struck the inspector and reached for another lighter. Lorraine rolled her wheelchair into his path. He tripped over the footrest. Marcus pinned him to the floor. Elodie seized an oxygen wrench and swung at Talia. Talia ducked, grabbed her wrist, and forced the wrench away. "You made me kneel beside broken plates," Talia said. "You threatened my mother's treatment and blamed hungry families for your theft." Elodie struggled. "You were staff. No one would have believed you." Dorian entered with 2 police officers behind him. "I believe her." Elodie froze. Dorian's face was pale from the drug, but he stood beside Talia. "And now the records, the witnesses, and your own voice believe her too." Lorraine lifted the recorder from beneath her blanket and pressed play. Elodie's voice filled the room. "Use Lorraine's identity. If the maid talks, blame them both." Then another threat played. "Cancel her mother's therapy if she refuses to clean the floor." The woman Elodie had dismissed as confused had recorded everything. Police arrested Elodie and Graham. Rusk surrendered his badge and gave investigators the certification files he had hidden. His cooperation did not erase his crimes. He was charged with fraud and obstruction, but his testimony helped recover the stolen accounts. The overseas transfer was frozen before final release. Investigators recovered more than $17 million. The remaining money was traced to properties and luxury accounts controlled by Crane Events. Every shelter named in the false campaign received the funds promised to it. Harbor Haven reopened under independent management, and the Ashford Foundation funded a permanent kitchen with publicly tracked deliveries. Dorian spent 2 days in the hospital. The injection caused dangerous sedation but no lasting injury. When he returned to the estate, he gathered every employee in the staff dining hall. "I signed donations and trusted reports because checking the truth felt like someone else's responsibility," he said. "That allowed cruelty to become policy inside my home." He restored stolen wages, benefits, and overtime with interest. Then he dissolved the foundation board and gave employee and shelter representatives equal voting power. Lorraine resumed therapy under a plan no executive could cancel. Weeks later, Talia entered the East Kitchen. 600 fresh meals waited on sealed carts, each carrying a tracking code shelters could verify. Dorian handed her a folder. It offered her leadership of the Foundation's new food distribution and compliance division after independent review. Talia read every page. "You expect me to trust another Ashford document?" "No," he said. "I expect you to question it." She accepted after adding protections for workers who reported fraud. At the first public delivery, Lorraine cut the ribbon while Mrs. Chen drove the lead truck. Dorian stood behind the staff instead of in front of them. A reporter asked why Talia had risked everything over 600 meals. She looked toward the families waiting outside Harbor Haven. "Because hunger does not become less real when rich people call it an accounting problem." Elodie had ordered Talia to eat from the floor to remind her of her place. Instead, the broken plate exposed the missing food, the missing money, and the people whose dignity had been treated as disposable. And when Dorian saw Talia crying on the marble, he did more than help her stand. He finally saw the system that had forced her down, and stood beside her while she rebuilt it so no worker, patient, or hungry family could ever be pushed there again.